You know that strange tension that can build up? Not during failure, but during success? You get the promotion, you launch the company, you step into a new role, and suddenly there's this invisible grinding pressure. It's not about the workload, it's something else entirely. Today, we're not talking about stress relief. We're talking about stress physics, specifically the physics of identity stress. So here's how we're going to break it down. First, we'll identify the signal. Then, we'll see how it shows up as a universal pattern. From there, we'll get into the system, the three core mechanisms driving it all. Then, we'll look at the real cost of misinterpreting these signals and the strategic edge you get from understanding them. And we'll wrap up with a few questions to turn this analysis on yourself. All right, let's start with the signal itself. This really gets to the heart of it. The pressure that truly gets you isn't the one you can see and name. It's the invisible load you mistake for a personal flaw. It's the friction that happens when who you are on the inside can't quite catch up to who you've become on the outside. It's all about that gap between who you were and who you are in the process of becoming. And you might think this is unique to your situation, but it's not. This kind of friction is a universal pattern. It shows up anytime our core identity is in motion. Just look at this range. It's everywhere. The new manager who's now supposed to lead their former peers. The founder who has to transition from being a doer to a leader. An athlete who suddenly loses the title that defined them for decades. Or even a student who gets into a top-tier school and now has to recalibrate their entire sense of self. They're all, in their own way, navigating the exact same invisible stress. So here's the common thread, right? Your job title, your responsibilities, what people expect from you, all of that can change in an instant. But your own internal map of who you are, well, that updates on a much, much slower timeline. That gap, that lag, that's exactly where identity stress is born. Okay, so what's actually going on under the hood? This isn't just a vague feeling. We can actually break it down into a system with three core mechanisms. Think of them like three gears in a machine, all working together to create this invisible pressure. Those three gears are role conflict, legacy labels, and self-concept lag. Let's dig into each one. First up, role conflict. Now, this isn't about having too much to do. It's about having too many yous to be at the same time. The classic example is when you get promoted and now you have to manage your friends. In every single conversation, your brain is running a background process asking, am I their peer right now, or am I their manager? That constant switching dramatically increases what's called decision density. And let me tell you, it is cognitively draining. And this lays out the trade-off perfectly. When you expand your role, sure, you get more opportunity and authority, but you also multiply the number of behavioral scripts your brain has to juggle. Now, staying put, role stability, that's comfortable. It minimizes that internal conflict, but it also caps your growth. So that stress you feel, it's not a sign you're failing. It's the engine noise of moving up. The second gear is legacy labels. This is the friction that comes from the outside world. People have you filed away in their minds as the junior dev, or the creative one, or the person who handles the details. So when you step into a new, bigger role, you're not just managing your own internal shift, you're fighting against the inertia of everyone else's old version of you. That social memory creates a very real identity drag. So what's the outcome here? A huge chunk of your cognitive energy gets burned in this constant, low-level negotiation for your own legitimacy. You might find yourself over-explaining your choices or feeling like you have to subtly justify your new authority. That energy expenditure is like a hidden tax on your ability to perform. And that brings us to the third mechanism, self-concept lag. This is basically the internal version of legacy labels. It's when your own mental model of yourself is out of date. You have the new title, you have the new authority, but your brain's internal permissions haven't caught up yet, so it treats this new, secure position as a threat or an uncertainty. This is exactly why getting a huge win can paradoxically make you feel more anxious, not less. So what's the bottom line? What happens when we don't see this system for what it is? What's the actual price you pay for this misalignment between your internal world and your external reality? While the costs are very real, that hesitation you feel when making a call, that's unresolved role conflict. The constant need to over-explain your actions, that's the energy tax from fighting legacy labels. And when you see people either withdrawing or overcompensating with bravado, that's the classic footprint of self-concept lag. It all quietly eats away at performance. And what's absolutely critical to understand is this. Breakdown is almost never a sudden event. It's the slow, accumulated weight of misinterpreting this structural pressure as a personal failing. It is not a question of weakness. It is a question of a fundamental misalignment between the load you're carrying and how you perceive that load. So, what's the alternative? How do psychologically resilient people navigate this differently? The edge they have isn't about coping strategies or mindfulness apps. It's about a complete shift in their mental model. And this is the shift. Just look at the difference here. The common interpretation is emotional and personal. I feel like an imposter. It's a judgment. The structural interpretation, on the other hand, is analytical and impersonal. Okay, there's a self-concept lag, or social memory is creating friction. You see what happens? By shifting from a feeling to a diagnosis, you go from being a victim of the pressure to an analyst of the system. You get your power back. And that's really the whole point of this. The goal isn't to just cope with bad feelings. The goal is to achieve a structural understanding of the forces that are creating them in the first place. Analysis, not affirmations. That is the edge. So let's bring this all home. We've taken the system apart. Now it's time to turn that analytical lens inward with 3 final questions. First one, who are you becoming? Not who you used to be, not who other people expect you to be, but who are you right now in the process of becoming? And on the flip side of that coin, what identity are you shedding? Because real growth is never just about adding things on. It's also about letting things go. And acknowledging what you're leaving behind is just as crucial as embracing what's next. And finally, ask yourself this. What feels unfamiliar, but right? That feeling of discomfort isn't always an alarm bell. Sometimes it's actually a compass, pointing you exactly where you need to go, directly toward your own evolution.